Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, November 14th, 2024, and this is the monthly meeting of the Arts and Culture Board. I am calling the meeting to order. We have all the necessary people in the room that should be here, so thank you very much for attending. I would say a quorum, but that doesn't count. We don't have a city council liaison tonight. She is off learning how to be a House representative for District 38. Gretchen Ryden won her seat for that position. So if you didn't know, now you do. I suspect, well, come January, we will have a new council liaison, and when you know, I'll know, and we'll all know together who that is. The next thing then on our agenda is directors' reports.
Just a couple things. Can't remember if our October meeting was before or after Craft Fair and Harvest Festival. So I'll just update you again. Craft Fair, great success, great weather. We had over 17,000 people, great turnout, great sales. Harvest Festival, almost 12,000 people. It's not quite a record, but pretty darn close. Great sales, great fundraiser for the Friends. So that was fantastic. We have filled our vacancy for the facilities maintenance technician. His name is Brian Laux. He's already just kicking butt. So we're getting lots done around here. And then finally, our mining exhibit below the surface has closed. That closed at the end of October, and it is completely gone. Jenny and her team have done a great job getting loans returned. Walls are down, pictures are gone. It is an empty shell. So we start on the next. So that's going to be an exhibit on Kate Ferretti, who you could probably, if you want to.
Yeah, Kate Ferretti was from an Italian immigrant family that lived in Denver, and her father was a stonemason. She made hats, and we actually have quite a few in the collection. So does History Colorado, a few other places, but she was a hat maker. And we also have oral histories from her and a lot of really great information. So thought we'd try an exhibit about hats and the woman who made them.
So that'll open end of June 2025. So watch this space.
All right. For the library side, we were grateful to host Arapahoe County as a polling location for phase 2 this fall. It's been a couple years, I believe, since we last did that. And it was a new experience for most of the current team since we've had some turnover, but our part of it seems to have gone fairly smoothly. And we were happy to support the county and support the voters of Arapahoe County in being able to participate in the democratic process through the Bemis Library. We this week welcomed our newest technical services supervisor, Alyssa Carver joins us most recently from Denver Public Library with many years of experience in Douglas County and other institutions, and brings some really good experience and leadership to the team there. We welcomed her this past Monday, so she's still taking from the fire hose of information, as many of us are familiar, but it's good to have her. If you visit the art gallery at the library, you will see many works produced and shared by many from our community as part of our community art project, which is an annual effort that we do to try to encourage people who may not style themselves or consider themselves to be artists to participate and practice and explore what art might mean for them. Our theme this year is a place for all. And so you'll see a variety of works in the gallery reflecting whatever that theme may mean for arts practitioners, new and old, in our community from a variety of levels of experience. We also have welcomed some pieces of a work from an artist as part of our annual partnership with the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art. You'll see some 3-dimensional and 2-dimensional pieces installed elsewhere around the library outside of the art gallery. So there's a lot of art sort of happening at the library right now. We welcome anybody to come by during open hours to avail yourselves of it and engage with it. And lastly, on Saturday, November 23rd, 2 Saturdays from now, will be World Children's Day, and the library is hosting a day-long feast of activities reflecting cultures from around the world: song, dance, music, craft, games, what have you. So mark the calendar for Saturday the 23rd, and we'd love to see you there.
Thank you. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is public comment. Don't see anyone from the public here. Would either of you care to comment publicly? Then I will close public comment and we will move on to our presentation from South Suburban Parks and Recreation District on the vision process for Hudson Gardens. Joe Ott is not joining us. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and the floor is yours.
Sure, I'll start and then I'll work on the screen share and you can introduce yourself too. My name's Ryan Hegernus. I'm a senior consultant with Barry Dunn. And our firm was awarded the opportunity to work with South Suburban on the vision plan for Hudson Gardens. I'll share a little bit more once I get the screen up, but also as part of our team for the project is DHM and Studio Trope, providing landscape design and architectural services and assessments for the project. And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
So Nicole Stullock, so it's nice to see some familiar faces in the group. And I am the Recreation Director for South Suburban in specific, I can't say the word. Specifically, thank you, oversees Hudson Gardens. And it's been nice to have Ryan back on the team, so to speak.
And as soon as I get the right key entered here, oh, it keeps asking for a new meeting passcode. GHD.
Oh, that's the sharing key. You'll want the passcode at the very, very
Oh,
bottom.
at the very, at the,
01703.
oh, got it. All right. I am now seeing the Zoom meet. Oh, there we go. I've been admitted in. Here we go. Thank you for your patience. All right. So we already did introductions. I'm going to talk briefly about our approach to this project and the various phases. Two of those are the needs assessment and community engagement. I'm going to focus primarily on our community engagement efforts thus far and what will be coming next. And I'd like to spend most of the time giving you all the opportunity to provide input. And we'll do that through a couple of ways. First, through an online tool, so you can give some unbiased input and then we'll have some opportunity for some conversation and input as well. So our approach to this project, you can see the 6 phases here. The project initiation is complete, and we are concurrently working on our community engagement and our needs assessment. I'll talk a little bit about the needs assessment first. That involves a lot of different analyses, everything from demographic assessments to we have DHM and Studio Trope on site, civil engineers, landscape architects looking at the buildings at Hudson Gardens, looking at the grounds, the irrigation systems, and really getting a holistic understanding of the conditions on the site currently and what are some of the needs and opportunities that are there. They will continue to work with us through that needs assessment as we get this community input, talk about future additions, improvements, and things like that to help put together some options and plans for the future utilizing their expertise. And then the community engagement phase, I'll get into in more detail. So once we've gotten through those 2 pieces, we go into what we call our visioning. So we've heard from the community in a number of different ways. We have experts providing input and analysis on the grounds themselves. And then we have our stakeholder conversations that we'll talk about through that engagement phase. And then that visioning is really starting to look at all of the options, all of the opportunities, and identifying some priorities and objectives for the future. That then feeds into draft plans. And those draft plans will go through the appropriate processes with South Suburban and their partners to ultimately become finally adopted. So we are in those initial phase 2 and 3 right now and expecting to really wrap both of those up in the next couple months here so that we can, in the new year, move into that visioning stage and then the drafting of the plans. So for the engagement, there are a lot of different users of Hudson Gardens. We have the immediate community, primarily here in Littleton. I've talked to many people that love it because they can walk to Hudson Gardens. We have the broader district users. We have active users that are engaged in programs and activities. We have passive users that just are there to enjoy the nature and get their meditation or their walking. Then there's the events that take place there and people that are attending those. And so we're trying to take a comprehensive approach to that engagement and trying to hear from all of those different audiences, make sure that everyone is informed and involved and that those views are represented. So what we do to begin in the phase of engagement that we are currently wrapping up this month is this open-ended phase. So we've been out, and I'll share a slide in a moment to share a little more about where we've been, but not going in with any preconceived ideas, but just asking people, what do you like about Hudson Gardens? What do you want to see improved? What would you like to see changed? And just leaving that open-ended and getting all of those ideas. As we get those, we're developing some themes that are coming out of that input that's feeding into the next stage where we can then have some specific survey questions that we then want to ask specific to some of those themes that have come from the open-ended inputs, some focus group meetings. So it might be anyone that has a particular interest in nature and gardening, or maybe we'd have a focus group on event rentals and engaging with people that have rented the facility in the past. And then also some focus surveys for those groups. So we get a little more, we start kind of wide and then we start to narrow that in and get more of that quantitative feedback. And then also stakeholder meetings that we'll be scheduling over the next month and a half here with South Suburban's partners and stakeholders and getting their input as well. This is also then that input along with that needs assessment input is then what will feed into the next stage of visioning. So to date with that, went too many slides. Here's an example of some of the marketing collateral that's out there. This is the English version, but we've produced these materials with both English and Spanish, either as separate materials or double-sided. For example, the comment card, one side is English, the other side is Spanish. We have posters, yard signs, business cards that we've left with businesses, these comment cards that we're utilizing, and then some graphics and things for social media as well. I'm just curious, maybe by show of hands, has anyone seen any of these materials at a rec center, a library, a local business, online? Okay, the majority. That's always great to see, to know that the word is getting out there. So some of that engagement to date, we've done general communication and outreach through digital channels. That's included email lists that South Suburban manages, including a Hudson Gardens list that I believe has nearly 60,000 email addresses on that. Cards and posters with Littleton businesses and facilities. There are nearly 30 Littleton businesses, primarily in the downtown and along Santa Fe, that accepted either posters or business cards from us to have on display in their locations. We've also left them with the library and museum, and then the South Suburban facilities across the district as well. We've done pop-up engagement activities at multiple locations, several times at Hudson Gardens. One of those was in partnership with Nixon's. If you came on out that morning, you could get a free coffee for your input. We were at the Aspen Groves Holiday Extravaganza. Halloween Extravaganza. Has anyone ever attended that? It's a bigger event than I had pictured. Thousands of people there. So we had a table there encouraging participation. We are giving away a really nice Yeti tote bag as an incentive for filling out a comment card. So that's kind of our attention grabber. And so people would stop to give some feedback and the chance to win that Yeti tote. We've done pop-up engagement at the Buck Recreation Center. I was just at the Bemis Library for an hour prior to this meeting, talking with people outside of the library. We will be at Breckenridge Brewery this weekend on Saturday afternoon, doing engagement. We'll have a table set up in their beer garden and engaging with people there. We're here with you this evening, and likely one more engagement at a South Suburban facility, getting those comment cards and feedback. There's also a website, and I believe you all got copies of some of the materials, and there's a QR code there. And that's a landing page for all of that input. There's an interactive map where people can give location-specific feedback or open-ended comments. And then we've also completed interviews with all of the volunteer groups at South Suburban, as well as the staff that work at Hudson Gardens. And that just wrapped up last week. So there's a lot of volunteers. That was a big undertaking, some really great feedback from that group as well. Just a few photos of some of those engagements at Hudson Gardens, at the Aspen Groves, and things just to give you a flavor for what some of those events have looked like. So next steps, we are developing a survey. It will likely actually be one main survey and then some topic-specific surveys for those that want to give even more input on some specific areas that probably everybody doesn't want to weigh in on. Stakeholder meetings, focus groups, and all of that will feed into an engagement feedback summary report that we will be providing to South Suburban. So I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions from you all before I take the next steps here to get some feedback from you on Hudson Gardens. But any questions on the process so far?
Do you see any of the feedback pointing in the direction of any particular things that a lot of people are pointing towards that they really like and that they really don't like, or have you not even gotten to that point yet?
Yes and no. Yes. So we have, but we haven't been public or vocal about that yet because we're still collecting that input, and we don't want to bias that, but we are using the input that we've received to date and have developed themes in terms of the things that people have been identified as wanting to see improved or changed. Also the themes that have come out of those volunteer interviews. And that's what we're using to identify what are the right questions that we should be asking in this survey to be getting the additional input that we need. So that's why we took that approach, so we can pull those themes out. You could probably guess what some of the main ones are, and you'd be right. But that'll all get reported in that engagement feedback report, but that'll also be feeding into the questions that we're now asking in the second phase of engagement.
More trees in downtown Littleton.
Always.
I will also mention that I know that Littleton's been working on their own, may get the title wrong, but own plan for arts and working with the consultant. I did have a conversation with Roxana from that consulting group, and they are going to be sharing some of their survey instrument, and once information is they've not given us any input because they haven't given anything to Littleton yet, but we'll be getting from them any feedback specific to Hudson Gardens as well. They didn't ask Hudson Gardens specific questions, but it certainly came up from talking to her in the feedback that they've received. So we'll be folding that input into our work as well.
Can you give a quick example of stakeholders versus community users versus focus group?
Yeah, so we generally our approach, the focus groups would be more topical and not and open to people that they have an interest to attend. That could be an in-person or a virtual meeting, and that might be themed around, for example, it could be about arts or culture within Hudson Gardens, or it could be about event rentals, things like that. The stakeholders would be groups that are either have input or say into the site, like partners of South Suburban, or people that are, or businesses that are impacted, like local neighbors and things to Hudson Gardens that we would be wanting to make sure that we have conversations with and get feedback from.
Does that include the city of Littleton?
Yes, certainly. You would absolutely, the city of Littleton would absolutely be a stakeholder in the process. All right, so what I'd like to do now is I'm going to switch screens. And if you all wouldn't mind pulling out your phone, I'd like you to have the opportunity to give some input. And you'll be asked similar questions to what we've been asking the public. We'll have some conversation also, but this will give you a way to give input before everyone else starts talking, and it can be your own feedback. I would like to utilize this input and fold this into our engagement plan. So whatever you provide, we would like to make that part of our public engagement input that we receive. Just want to put that out there so that you're aware. We wouldn't be associating anybody's name with that feedback, but this would be public input. You can either go to that website or scan that QR code. And I'm going to do this as well so I can follow along and make sure everything's working.
Can I access this after the fact?
No, but if you'd like to give input after the fact,
I've already been on the online.
okay,
website.
yeah. So what we'll do is the input that we receive here, we'll add that to that engagement page. So it's all of the public input that we've received, whether digital or through the comment cards is available to the public there. So there will be, you can give the input if you already have or something else occurs to you, you can go to that game plan page from South Suburban to provide feedback. All right. And if that page is working, the first question is, what do you like about Hudson Gardens? And hopefully it's working for you. I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi on my phone and I'm not getting the page to load. You got it? All right, perfect. Yeah.
Is it, sorry, am I now open to like an interactive map? Does that sound familiar?
No, it should look like this. Maybe just close it.
Oh, if you're scanning the QR code on the materials, that will take you to the interactive map. The QR code on the screen here, or you can go to menti.com and type in the code you see on the screen. And I can go back. This shouldn't mess anyone up. I'll go back to the previous slide so that QR code is back there.
Get back to the beginning.
Feedback should still be there.
Oh, should it?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll just give everyone a couple of minutes here to type some feedback. What it is that you like about Hudson Gardens. Temporarily hide your responses so you don't influence each other. And this isn't your only opportunity to give input. You're welcome anytime to go to the website and provide additional feedback there. There is an interactive map, so if you have, a certain spot that you think a bench definitely needs to be or something, you can pinpoint that on the map and give that feedback geographically. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and unhide these. We'll come back and revisit these and have some conversation in a moment. But all right, 14 responses. This is fantastic. Wonderful. We'll go to the next question, then we'll come back and have some dialogue about these. What would you like to see added or improved? We'll give another 30 seconds to a minute here for any additional input.
More picnic bench tables.
I'll put that in for you, Roy.
All right, and then my last question here before we have some conversation. Whoa, it didn't want me to ask it. Other input. So if there's anything else that doesn't fall into the category of something you like or would like added or improved, but there's something else that you want to make sure gets included, you're welcome to type that here, but you don't have to. And I'll leave that screen up there for a moment if anyone else is typing. I'd like to circle back to the first question, and in terms of things that you like, is there anything that you all would like to discuss or talk about? Things that you can maybe go into a little more detail than you did on the text. Things that you don't want to see touched. We've heard several people through our engagement that say, "I love it the way it is." So, like things that you really like that for you are special or iconic about Hudson Gardens, and you'd like to see them continue as they are. We go back to those comments here.
When Hudson Gardens was first created, the concept of the pavilion before it was turned into the building that it is now, was a venue actually for local performing arts. And that never came to fruition. I actually performed there twice in the first couple of years. But then they shifted to these larger events during the summertime. And I don't know whether it became too expensive or what happened to that concept. But certainly it is no longer a venue for performing arts for local organizations. And, that would be nice to see again, because one, Littleton proper does not have a good small performing arts venue, and we desperately need it. And, that would be one direction to go if there was some construction that was of interest to the group. The other thought that I had, you mentioned the 60 some odd thousand emails. I don't know how many quote unquote members there were prior to South Suburban taking over. But I don't know if there's a mechanism that there could be membership in the gardens again. Membership specifically for the gardens, and possibly having as a benefit of that, perhaps discounts on tickets for events there.
Yeah, thank you. We actually just had a little bit of a conversation about that today, and I'll maybe let Nicole provide some clarification on what kind of membership means right now. But with it being free to the public, the membership isn't the same as it was previously, but there are some benefits. Maybe you can kind of share how that works.
Sure. So the benefits now are related to essentially botanicals. So once you have the membership, you can go to any of the botanicals across the nation, and that is the draw. So a $30 membership with us actually gets you into Denver Botanicals compared to their membership fee. So it is definitely a value to that, but again, we haven't been great at educating what that value is. I think more people, to your point, have associated the membership to the concert series back in the past. So we know that there's a opportunity that lies within that membership.
Any other comments or things you'd like to expand upon when it comes to the things that you like about Hudson Gardens before we get some feedback and conversation around things you'd like changed or improved? All right, then we'll go to that one. And I will take some notes here, if any comments aren't reflected in what's already provided here. Anything that anyone would like to maybe provide a little additional context or explanation to in terms of the feedback here on things you'd like to see added or improved at Hudson Gardens? And I'll slowly scroll through these so you all can see some of this input.
I've always been excited by when I take my kids to the South Suburban Sports Center and somebody had the idea to add a bar. I thought that was a bold move in a place for like hockey and all of that, but they got it done and it's actually a really enjoyable place for like parents to sit and have a beer together and some nachos while the kids play basketball or whatever else. I just think it'd be amazing if we could use that space to draw in a lot more visitors. And I think that that would include some sort of open air structure that served beer and snacks. I think it'd be a place that people would really want to go to for like date night. And of course, if there was park structures or go for the moon, like a carousel or something added that families could bring their kids to, because we'll stay for hours at the zoo just for those types of things to really stay and enjoy. If the kids have something to do, and my kids find frogs already at Hudson Gardens, so we have a great time there. But if we could get some more structures in place for dates and for kids to draw in a lot of people, I just think it's the perfect real estate along the river there.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I liked seeing concerts on there and the rotating art show, but it also made me think of several years ago, you had Opera Colorado come in. And it would be nice to see things like that, other cultural events there as well. It was my kids' first opportunity to see the opera and it was perfect place for them to do that. So it'd be good to see that again.
Yeah, and to the points about concerts and in that venue, I haven't kept up on it, to be fair, for the last couple of years, which I mentioned in my comment there. I wasn't sure if they were back or not, but the summer concert series has not been going since 2020, I assume. Is that right? Okay. Are there any talks about bringing that back?
That's the whole point of this vision plan, right? Just to understand exactly what direction we should go, because there is a cost benefit associated with that. So we're
Sure.
trying to understand from the public where that fine line goes.
Gotcha.
It's a frequent comment as we're doing the engagement, and so that survey, part of that is trying to understand. The concerts can mean any number of things, and we know what those were in the past, but do people just want somewhere to go and hang out and experience music, and does it matter that it's a local band versus a national act? And if it's a national act, what's the appetite for how much those tickets might cost with how the concert scene is now post-pandemic and trying to make those things work. So that's one of those areas that we'll be diving further into, is kind of concert specific and understanding how we can best address that desire and what that looks like. You did have the July 3rd concert. Right?
Yep, so the Diamond, I'm drawing.
Super Diamond.
Super Diamond, thank you. Yeah, Super Diamond came back and it was a sellout show, so obviously, I mean, we hear people want concerts, and to Ryan's point, it's a frequent topic. Concerts mean something to everybody, so
Sure.
I'm trying to understand what that is.
I think, sorry.
you go.
I guess I'd have two observations. One is really coming off of both what Roy and Emily said, and that is, I love the idea of Hudson Gardens being a multi-hour experience where maybe it's a concert, but maybe it's just a space where a local musician can come and strum on a guitar. Or, it doesn't have to be grand, but something where I can go and I can get a breakfast burrito at Nixon's, stroll through the gardens, listen to an afternoon concert, have lunch, where I can spend hours there and not have to leave. I like that a lot. And I think music and concerts can be very small and just encouraged as one or two piece opportunities, not necessarily that. I appreciate that the symphony is welcome there every summer. I think that is outstanding. And I think having to some degree a space for that that's more permanent and covered would encourage more of it, good or bad. The other piece that I would love to see, which is I think different than any other South Suburban space model, and that is, maybe it's through a membership or some other fashion, an opportunity for stakeholders to give constant feedback and offer a little more direct control than they might have over a rec center or over some other property. So, buy-in that can be an ongoing focus group and an ongoing opportunity for the users, be they local or from somewhere else in the region, can really speak to what's important to them and this incredibly unique property. Greater than public comment at the,
Right.
at the South Suburban board. Yes.
Similar to what you were saying, last summer I went to a corporate party there for Dish. It was delightful. It was so great because they probably, I don't know how much they had to pay for if Matt Kearney come in and give a concert there, but because people didn't pay a whole lot of money out of their own pocket for it, and there was no stress about parking or anything. It was so, people just kind of sat down, they got up and danced, they walked around, they came back, listened some more. And it was just food trucks for it was all free because it was a corporate thing, but you could just have food trucks for the food and the beer and the wine and the mixed drinks and whatever. And people did spend hours just walking around, listening to music. And so if there was something like a community, a back to school day, or before school starts, just a community day where there's food trucks and some music, and it's just or an end of school or a 4th of July community party kind of thing where I don't know how you make money on it yourself without spending money, but maybe you pay something, like a $10 or something, just to, it was lovely. It was better than a big super diamond.
I don't know about that.
No.
I'll give Dish kudos. That was a great event that they put on.
Yeah.
It was.
Any
Maybe
other
there-
additional comments anyone would like to provide some context? Yes.
Oh, I wonder if they could tie in with Western Welcome Week a little bit. So maybe some of the musicians are playing, I don't know, some traditionally Western type music, or there's a square dancing stage somewhere set up. I don't know. It's just a great space to tie into that event as well. Because, it's a whole week of celebration leading up to the parade.
The only other thing I thought of is infrastructure to make it a more nighttime property. Summer nights with twinkly lights and whatnot, where you could stay there into the evening.
As I said, be more picnic tables.
Maybe another set of bathrooms at the other end,
Hmm.
just for little ones. We've had some interesting moments.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same. I wonder how many kids have had
Mhm.
interesting moments down at that other end.
Mine have.
Okay.
That is one of the other
Yeah.
themes that's come up through the,
Okay.
either the bathroom locations or just preferring not to use the portable ones if possible. This has been fantastic. Anything else before we wrap it up and let you get on with the rest of your meeting?
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but back to the concert thing, just one more thing. Because I have friends who played at the Westward Underground Music Showcase this summer and got to experience that for the first time, and it was great. It was multiple local bands. So maybe having an idea, because trust me, there's a million bands out in this town that are good and would love to play a local stage to local crowds. So, maybe having an all-day festival where you've got 10 bands that play, that's very local focused. That might be a fun thing. would consider as well, if you're talking about bringing concerts back.
Thanks for that. All right, well, again, you can always go to the game plan website to give feedback. We will be posting when it's available later this month, that survey, so there'll be additional opportunities if you want to provide additional comments or feedback specific to the gardens or concerts. We would love for you to do that. And we're excited to then take that feedback and the other work that's ongoing and put that into some great plans and visions and drafts to bring back. And it's a remarkable property. It's one of my favorite places to just visit, and like JD was saying, just to spend some time there, get a coffee, bring out my laptop and just be in nature. So we want to maximize that for the community's benefit for years to come. So thank you.
Thank you. Can you, will there be other opportunities as you go through this process for this body or the individuals in it to offer feedback on a vision draft or any other step in this process that it comes back for public engagement?
Do you know how that will work with between his presentations to the board and how that will look with Littleton's council? We haven't ironed out exactly what that process is.
I think, well, you will be aware as part of one of the members of the stakeholder meetings, but we're still ironing out that process and exactly who we all want to get involved in the exact vision plan on the final property. I know City of Littleton for sure, but we're not sure exactly how many various stakeholders will provide the direct input.
I would say if nothing else, and this isn't to say there wouldn't be another opportunity, but if nothing else, when those plans are public for either board or council to take action on, there'd be the opportunity to provide this group's input, if there's not another process, to either the South Suburban Board or the Littleton Council. In that manner, if there isn't another opportunity to sit down like this.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome to stick around. It's an exciting time. Why don't you go on your way or hopefully do that too. All right, well then, moving on in our agenda, first item under old business is a mural policy review. And if I may also ask, it's not on the agenda, a recap from yesterday and any master plan updates just for the good of the group.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, JD. We had our fourth and final CAP group quarterly meeting yesterday. Thank you to Dennis and your library staff for hosting at Bemis. We had a really great turnout. We had about 40 people come. And it was very representative, I found, of like lots of different kinds of arts and culture orgs and visual artists from all across the community. And our speaker was Alexandra Vanderpool, who is relatively new to the city. She's the senior marketing and events person for the communications department. So she specifically talked a lot about the Visit Littleton website as a resource for some of our community partners and how they can more easily promote their programs and events through city channels. And I felt like it was pretty well received and people got some really good, like actionable ideas. It was a great opportunity for connection and collaborating, which is kind of the big goal of CAP anyway. So it's wonderful. The next one is in February and it will be at Art Spark. Thank you, guys. Master plan, we are rolling right along. Keene is going to get back to us on November 22nd with their draft implementation plan. And JD, do you know, like, at what point generally when this body will be able to take a look at that? Probably not until January.
I think,
meeting, I'm
I think our intention is to not meet in December. And
Yeah,
I don't even know if it'll be fully ready to preview by then. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
It's kind of penciled in for January, but
yeah.
it may be February.
So soon. And I'm really excited to share that out. We've had a lot of
similar to this process that we just heard. We got a lot of community engagement and a lot of feedback for what we want the future to look like for arts and culture. So more coming on that soon. Any other questions on CAP or master plan? Mural policy review will be very short, because after this meeting adjourns tonight, we have our public art subcommittee, with a handful of us will be staying to review and approve, 3 murals. So I'll have an update on that for the whole body, whenever we next meet, whether that's December or January. But you all did get a chance to review this, I hope. I have an updated version here. It just has a very small edit, thanks to Roy for calling out that we should specifically say commercial advertising will not be funded. So I added that on here. And as long as there's no other feedback or thoughts on this, I'd like to go forward with it. But hi, Kate. Did anyone else have any thoughts on this that they wanted to share? So we'll plan on opening applications to wall owners in January. And we'll have that application window for 6 weeks or so. So it'll be a little bit more of a structured process this coming year. And then finally, for my end, the debrief on the grant review process. Obviously, we've all had a chance to review the policy revision that was approved by council last month. So I think this is more of an opportunity for some top level recommendations. Since we've already received some feedback over the last month via email or in person, things like some tweaks to the application questions, perhaps changes to the review process, like sending your funding recommendations in before our meeting in July, things like that. We've kind of discussed, and I have that written down for changes for next year. But I think what we were hoping for, we wanted to provide an opportunity just for some more general discussion on your thoughts on how it went this year. And basically, you know, what you want staff to bring back to you with. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Super smooth.
Good.
Like
Last-
the binder is great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done. Yeah.
We will continue with budget.
Last year, we talked about the presentations and there was just a short discussion at the end of the meeting. And I didn't recall, SCFD actually has a formal check presentation program where at least the cultural councils, each one had their own check presentation program, but the boards actually presented physical check to each recipient. You know, we had 10 board members, and so we each got some of the checks and took turns, but it was an evening where we had snacks, and the grantees actually came and physically received a check so it was a scheduled check presentation program, which again, everybody got to see everybody else who was receiving something, and it was we kind of made a big deal out of it. So I don't know. I heard yesterday, or whenever the checks are being presented or given out.
We're like a week away
Yeah.
from final budget approval. That's next Tuesday.
Yeah,
So I can't send out the award notifications until then. So in a week. But I think you're right, Roy, that there's a really good opportunity to celebrate the work that we did
yeah.
and for other people to see like what else people are doing in the
Yeah.
community.
So I don't know if that's something we could do next year, maybe.
That's an idea for sure.
I
Think
can't
about it.
remember
I
if
don't know.
there's like is there like a public listing of who got what?
No, there's not. We,
Which I
at
don't
the
even
State of the
get.
Arts event, we did in the past have kind of a list, but that was ephemeral, you know, it was like a presentation that we did where people could see. But there's no reason why we couldn't post it on the website. Obviously, we probably wouldn't do award amounts, but we could just say the recipients.
Oh, okay, yeah.
What do you think about that? Yeah, I mean, we could definitely talk about it.
We can work through that.
Yeah.
It is part of council's packet for approval. So it's in the council packet. But that's a big packet, that one, especially that one. So I mean, it is public, but it's buried.
It's also, it's impressive because there will be like however many, I mean, 50 that we awarded. We had over 60 applicants. So it's really cool to just see the list even of everyone who's benefiting.
Definitely worth celebrating.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I had for the board is, in the process of the application, are you interested in asking any additional questions or receiving any additional information that might make it easier for you to make your recommendations and ultimately this body's decision in awarding? And again, I think tonight is not about wordsmithing those. It's about throwing out ideas that can be wordsmithed by staff and then brought back for ultimate adoption in, I think, January, February at the very latest, in order to be
Yeah.
rolled in there. So anything along those lines?
I would like some words in the application process. It basically sets, show me your resume, but it doesn't, like, we have an interpretation. Let's just talk about what happened at like the Centennial Arts viewpoint of, however I might feel or somebody else might feel, how it benefits the community. I'd like to hear their words a little bit, like almost a little bit of an like a summary of why they would like their application considered.
Like testimonials?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, that's already kind of part of the process. Like they have to, they have to give like, link to their website, social media, that kind of stuff. So maybe there's a little bit of by way of that, you could see some testimonials because somebody, especially if it's an installation, somebody had to have liked that to have it installed. I was just thinking maybe just like a little bit of a summary, kind of like, somewhat like what we do for, applications for.
Oh,
funding.
you're referring to the mural program?
Yep.
Right now?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
sorry.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. We can definitely talk about that too in the, our subcommittee meeting later. You're not referring to the grant application process about.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were talking about mural first.
It's confusing, we were. But I think I understand what you're talking about. And we can, let's talk about that at the subcommittee meeting for sure.
So like last year you had categories and this
Yeah.
year we won't have children, we won't have murals. So are you gonna like,
Not
it was helpful.
necessarily.
Oh, you would
Yeah.
still, I think the categories still kind of helped process.
Yeah, we did that. Obviously that was new this year and it's very dependent on who applies. And I think that will obviously change from year to year. That this was the last year for the stadium funding, so we will not be able to pull out the youth stuff separately. And we've already decided that murals won't be accepted as part of the grant program. That will be eligible for a separate program. So already, I mean, we can talk about that, but I think it will be very dependent. The categories will be dependent on what we receive.
Let me turn that around. Would it be helpful to this body to have the applicant self-identify as a category?
There you go.
Youth programming, whatever.
I would think so.
We do.
I would like to see that.
So I think that's something we can workshop and bring back.
And if they identify it as a youth program, then what?
It's just it would be, in this case, because there's no more stadium funding, it would be a helpful tool for us to sort them. And that's the question is, would that be a helpful tool? To know that it's
Categorize.
youth versus adult versus senior versus whatever in your deliberations, not necessarily weighted like we did last year,
Yeah.
but just to help with the process. I don't know.
I
That's the
think
question.
so, because then when we're kind of pinpointing what money goes where, maybe then we can kind of get a more general sense of where we're putting most of our dollars for each of us. maybe I wouldn't notice otherwise unless there was that label on each one of them.
There is, of course, not to interject, but also the possibility that there might be a use case that an applicant is considering that might not fit many of the categories that we sort of set up. In the last review process, basically the way that we established the categories that would frame our discussion was reflective of the applications that we had already received at that time. So it may or may not work as well to reverse engineer it that way.
So I think in that instance, I would ask you all to think about it and let us know before when we come back. One of the things that I am interested in, and I always ask, because this year we're back to one application per entity, is the question that I always want to know is what is the minimum amount of funding you need from the Arts and Culture Board in order to proceed with your project? Is it 100% of the funds? Do you need 50% of the funds? Because I always worry that if we only award $1,000 towards a $5,000 ask, if they can't make up the $4,000 difference, what's the point? And
Yeah.
so that's a question that I'm interested in.
Or the flip side of that, which is, should we fund their whole, like, are they asking us to fund their whole project?
Which I don't. I mean, maybe that's something that we need to discuss is, are we comfortable funding 100%?
If we know
of the
that
project?
information, I think it can assist, like, it can help our decision making a little bit. I like that.
That brings up the question of would that put us in the position of selecting specific projects to fully fund and then not funding other projects, period?
Mhm.
Which is certainly a reality, and I think I don't have a problem doing that, you know. If we get 30 applications and there ends up being 15 of those that we want to fund and that we think are worthwhile, and that the other 15 we don't have the funds available to help those people that particular year, I don't have a problem doing that. So, yeah, I think, you know, your question is, do you need 100% of the funds from us, is a reasonable question to ask.
Do you think that when you do that, that they're gonna think if they say yes, that they'll get more money from us, I guess?
Yes. You know, well, if that's the question, if there's somebody who is presenting us with a project, should we consider fully funding a project to the detriment of some other potentially worthwhile
Yeah.
project?
I think because we've never, or in few cases have fully funded any project. I mean, if we do, they're the very small projects. But for 90%, I would guess, of the projects we funded, they've all been less than fully funded.
Right.
And I would suspect that for the most part, if not tinkered with, that will continue to be the case.
Yeah.
And what we don't know is if we blindly fund 50% of a project, if that money can be used towards that.
Can that question be asked instead of just saying, can we ask, will your project continue if not fully funded, I guess? Is that a different question?
Or if you don't get the amount
Will
I think,
that you're
yeah,
pursue the project?
yeah.
I think yes, it can be asked. I think that knowing the percentage that they believe they can fill from other pots is important to us, at least important to me. To know, I mean, because if everybody needs 90% of funding, that's gonna change the way that I approach looking at all of them. If everyone only needs 10% of funding, that's also helpful to me.
Yeah.
Other considerations you'd like to throw into the pot? I have one other that I wanted to float. And that is for new initiatives. Personally, and I say this knowing that as a body, we cannot commit future boards to fund anything. We can't promise to fund anything for multiple years. We don't have the ability to do so. However, I'm also inclined to not want to fund something in perpetuity. So if you're gonna hire a new janitor, I want to help you do that. And I'd love to help you to the point where you can sustain that, but not forever, because I want this money to continue to build and invigorate and incentivize new things and changes. So I might ask this board if some sort of phrase like, we will fund a new initiative for up to 3 years with no guarantee of funding in year 2 and 3, but not for more than that. So if you want an executive director, the question becomes, how will you eventually sustain that on your own without the help of this body? I don't know what the temperature for something like that would be, and I'm not, there's lots of ins and outs, but it's something that would, again, help me. I wanna really encourage projects that eventually become self-sustaining.
My concern then is if something that is, for lack of a better word, better or more exciting or really lends itself to the arts and culture, and we've already promised funds to this entity over here, and that prevents us from giving money to this entity. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I mean, though. It's not a promise. It's just, it's notion for someone applying that they certainly would not receive funding for more than 3 years. That they're going to have to figure out how to launch this and get it off on its own. If I wanna start a new theater troupe, I know that I'm gonna have to make it self-sustaining within 3 years, but there's no guarantee of future funds. Just, there's no, I mean, if all the hotels shut down, there's no guarantee for anybody, anything, right? If we have a sudden hotel strike and nobody comes to Littleton and stays, there's no guarantee of funding regardless. So I don't mind saying that funding a project 1 year doesn't guarantee it the following year. I think that should go without saying, but maybe we should say that. But I also think it's important to say that we will invest in your organization. We will fund your executive director or your marketing director or your whatever, but only for 3 years or only for 5, whatever this body decides, only for X number of time.
I agree in that, because I think that there were some of those applications, I think one of them was repeat already with regard to marketing in some capacity. And that's where, for me, I'm like, how long are we gonna dish out money for someone to market their organization? And I don't know, I would say definitely there would be a limit at some point on some of those types of
Some of that
applications. No, go ahead.
Some of that falls into brain freeze. Just general operating support. And so we're doing mostly projects, but some of these people are basically asking for just general operating support.
And I think for me, that might be different, honestly, than
Oh, yeah.
a new something.
Yeah.
But I haven't thought through this all the way. And we don't have to decide tonight.
I think it's a good thing to circle back to. I get what you're saying. There's probably pros and cons, but it seems like we've kind of got our core group of the in perpetuity that everything, the first thing we're gonna do when any money's coming through the door is help this place, library in Hudson and whatnot. But maybe that should stay that way, and these should just be more kind of temporary startup kind of fundings. Like you said, if someone's coming back for marketing year after year, then maybe they've got some
Yeah,
other
I mean,
work
for
they need to do.
me,
on
that's
their
where
own.
I get kind of concerned,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I guess I'm a visual person. I want something substantial. I want to see it in the community. I don't want to be thrown in the internet where they're seeing ads or, I'm not to say that that's what they did. I mean, I don't even remember something like that. It could be just literally throwing ads within a computer, and I don't know how much I'd want to do that for year after year. So I think a limitation on some of those organizations might be a good thing.
We could limit the applications to projects only. If you wanted to do lake projects. And encourage, a project, either, a performance, or a series of performances or some artwork or whatever that. Because right now the application doesn't specify specifically that it's for projects only.
Correct.
I think the obstacle that we're looking at is if the first 2 years are any indication, the amount of money we have to give will stay relatively flat. And the number of people asking for money and the amount of money being asked for is going to continue to grow. And so for the sake of trying to be upfront with those people applying so that they know what they can expect, they know what they can plan on, but also for us in making decisions that are predictable. And that is, not totally based on the whim of who you know or who you like or what you've seen or what your tastes are. I am a fan of limiting the ability for people to apply to something more certain. And those are the two of the ideas that I had in order to do that. Can I offer then, if anybody has any follow-up ideas, to just email Anna
That'd be great.
and then
Yeah.
that we,
Yeah, let's set a deadline though, so because we definitely, if there are significant changes to the application, we need to know sooner rather than later.
so like January 10th.
No, before then.
When does the application?
I see you were making a joke. The application opens on February 28th. So I think my suggestion would be December 15th. That gives a month, and that's before holidays.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. The next thing on our agenda is the follow-up to the Arapahoe Community College Tier 1 presentation that this board saw last month. Katie is not here tonight, not because she is avoiding this conversation. She just had a conflict. And she did say that if there were any questions, we could email her and she'd be happy to try to answer them. But what we are charged with doing, if we so choose, and we don't have to do this, we're not obligated to make a decision or a recommendation either way. But if this body is so inclined to make a recommendation to city council as to the status of ACC, we can do so. It will ultimately be their decision. This would not be for 2025 funding. This would be for 2026 funding at the earliest, and you can certainly look beyond that. I don't think we're necessarily looking to broadly change the policy, at least not tonight. If that's something that a path that we find ourselves going down, I would perhaps suggest we take more time to do it, but really looking at keeping the model of 50% tier 1, 25% tier 2, 15%, 10%, so on. So if we sort of make that as a general assumption to start to help frame this conversation. And with those parameters, am I missing any other parameters?
You're good.
I think that's good. Anyone want to start the conversation of their response to what you heard last month?
I have to apologize. I have to leave for prior commitment. So I'm gonna step away. Thanks.
Anything you want to offer before you go?
I don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul on the one hand. On the other hand, I think that ACC has probably made a very good case. I thought it was a good case to maybe level up, but I don't know what the ramifications of that are for all the tier 1s right now. So, that would be my major concern, is what that kind of push and pull is on the funding and, you know, what the funding is gonna look like 2 years down the road. And I don't know that we have good answers to that right now. So that's general thoughts, but not hard opinions. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And if I don't see you all, have a great holiday and happy New Year.
You too.
I will, just as a reminder, tier one is currently made up of I'm sorry. This Littleton Museum, the Bemis Library, the Town Hall Arts Center, and Hudson Gardens. And they split tier one funding equally 4 ways. And this year that was $100,000.
Correct, each.
Each. And
What
it was, I
was
think,
it,
a little bit more the year before that.
what was it after the adjustment?
100.
The tier one was not
Oh,
adjusted
that's right,
this
we
year.
didn't adjust. tier
We
one.
adjusted them the year before, so they
Yeah,
were left
right.
alone.
So what is the status with Hudson Gardens? Like what was that? Was that just like a master plan kind of like?
Yes, I mean, it's a visioning plan. It's not a master plan as far as land use necessarily. It's a vision plan of how that space and what that space will be moving forward.
So like if Hudson Gardens was just fully under South Suburban, which I think they are, right? And they just had a different funding, then it's not robbing Peter to pay Paul, it's just substituting in someone else, like. You know, if Hudson Gardens wasn't one of the tier ones, I would feel a lot better about adding in ACC.
I would agree with you as well.
Talking about eliminating Hudson Gardens.
Yeah.
They've got, you know, I don't know how much of South Suburban's total budget is now going to will be going to support Hudson Gardens. But not in here, but on the website that I was just on yesterday. No, it was in the newsletter I just got today. They've already putting $2.4 million into refurbishing some of the garden. You know, so they have that. South Suburban has, I won't say they have a lot of money, but they certainly have more resources than we can supply them. With that 100,000 or whatever it would end up being next year. As much as I'd like to support the gardens, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing if the city council wants to switch ACC for gardens in tier one. So I wouldn't be opposed to eliminating.
I think I might want to entertain those as 2 separate questions.
Okay.
Just because I think there's other information that may be relevant in presenting to this body before deciding to, you know,
Oh, yeah.
pull somebody out of tier one. Again, those were used as examples, but the city council set those as the 4 organizations. And since the question necessarily hasn't been asked, should we pull one out? I'd want to make sure that Hudson Gardens would have a chance to weigh in on that and present you with more information before we did that.
It came up in
I hear you.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I agree. No, they were included in this was established prior to South Suburban taking over Hudson Gardens.
I think officially, yes, we slightly started this and named them as a tier one before South Suburban took over.
Right.
And their year one money went towards funding this vision plan.
Right. Sorry, Kate.
You did one of the comments, and I forget who I was talking to, but they said, you know, if ACC got to present, is it fair then that each of the other entities would present their case for the funding? And I think that might have some merit as well. The Town Hall Arts Center would come before us, Hudson Gardens, the library, the the museum and say, this is what we do with the funds, this is why we feel it's important. And I don't know if we would have to restructure everything or if it would even matter, but I mean, I just,
Can I have a
thought I'd
question?
throw
Can I
that
ask
out
a
there.
question? Town hall, does it have is there an actual connection with the city at all or none?
The city owns the building
Okay,
that town hall is in.
okay. I was just wondering, because to me, like Littleton and Museum, they're like no brainers, that they're entities of the city. I mean, they should be funded. In my mind, even maybe more so, but I understand that we're dealing with a situation where everyone, it's, the city council definitely wants to spread the money around to other entities, and that's a good thing. But I would say that, at least in my mind, I mean, you want to feed the person that, you know, you're most connected to. And clearly, the city's organizations are prominent, you know, the museum and the library are, of course, most important in my mind. Yes, ACC, I think, gave a really good case in regard to what they could provide culturally to our community. I don't know about Hudson Gardens, but then again, I wasn't here the initial time when you guys were establishing this, so I'm not for sure as where they fall in that. Most cases in my mind, every time I go to Hudson Gardens, it's always something I have to pay out. So it's not like something free where I can walk into the library or the museum and it's very, very low cost and it's good entertainment, so.
Right now, the gardens are free during the day.
During the day, right.
I was just also wondering, I mean, if you set a precedent that you're letting ACC into tier one, what stops like Chatfield Farms, what stops
Yeah.
other organizations from challenging that too and saying, you know, my opinion is right there with you, like, what is accessible, free, public, art function, and I think the first three make total sense.
Right.
Or actually all of tier four or tier one makes total sense. It's not that you can't go into ACC and see things for free too. It's not, but a lot of the events are, some of the events are paid. It's it kind of just depends. I just wonder about just the slope of like other organizations kind of, you know, saying, I wouldn't mind, you know, getting some funding too, which maybe there's nothing wrong with that.
I go back to, when we as a city voted for the lodger's tax and it was overwhelming, the support, and everybody seemed to love it, but it was with those big four in the language. And I think that people think of those four right now as really the strong leaders of the community and arts and culture. We're still only 2 years into this grant process.
Yeah.
Right.
And the last 2 years, we've seen an expectation of what our funds are going to be, and they weren't that. So that's where my concern is. I think it's great that we have the big four. I think that right now they do make sense. The amount of people that felt like it made sense, you look at the vote and you see that they also bought into that as well. I don't know that with the funding not meeting what we've expected 2 years in a row, looking at another entity to come in makes sense to me. Because that just lowers the money that everybody else will currently be getting in the next couple of years. I know this is 2026 that we're talking about. But that's a concern that I have. So.
And my concern again is just that like, if ACC got in there, like, wouldn't a lot of LPS parents think it'd be nice if we had a piece that pie too?
Yeah.
Yeah, like why would stop at Littleton? It's public schools coming and asking us.
Opening, as he said, would it be opening the floodgates?
It's an interesting dilemma. Our body is charged with supporting and advancing the arts. So through our actions, both related to the grant and otherwise, we are hopefully raising all ships, meaning that it will constantly be a moving target. Hopefully, it will constantly be a moving target. And tier one has no definition. There's not there's not a population number or a membership number or a budget number. There's none of that. And that matches SCFD, which for its big five, the big five organizations in tier one, that's it. There's no threshold. They can't fall out of tier one unless they go away. Somebody can't come up and join them. And I don't know the reasoning behind SCFD, but I know that that is true and our lodger's tax was modeled under that same threshold. It doesn't mean that and I've asked this question before, is there merit to defining what tier one is in Littleton? Which would then allow organizations to essentially make applications every year or have to reapply, and there's pros and cons with that. I'm not advocating we solve that problem tonight, but it's certainly something that as a body we could look at in the future. I suspect that would be a multiple month conversation. So with all that considered, again, I'll pull it back to the question that we have before us tonight, which we can answer or not, is there a recommendation for ACC to go into tier one in the next available funding year, which would be 2026?
I think listening to Denise, I just think it's too early. I think we wait, because I think the funding's still, new. I don't know where it's gonna go. I don't know, if throwing in more people into tier one's the right way to go.
So I'm sure none of you are surprised, but I am very pro ACC, and one of the large reasons is that they haven't been included for years and years as really part of the community. They have a huge design center that I don't know if any of you guys have seen, but it has like 5 different kilns that the region can use, as well as the community. They offer community courses. And I think by including them more into our community, the arts that they do provide and the curriculum that they provide is very strong. I think that $100,000 is a lot of money, and I think $80,000 is a lot of money. And I understand that some cuts would need to be made by the other entities, but I'm of the opinion that the more that we open things up and open our arms to other entities within the city, and the Arapahoe Community College is right there. I mean, it's 2 blocks away from our downtown. You gave the example of Chatfield, but it's not in Littleton.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of our huge criteria, is that it's in Littleton and it serves the Littleton community. And it has the design center. I mean, within that, it's the pottery and the kilns and the jewelry making and the photography, both professional and then, hobby. There's just so many cool things there that as arts and culture, I just see us supporting that. So I'm very much in favor of it, but that's my opinion.
Does SCFD, do they divide equally for the tier one?
Yes.
That's in there, okay.
I'm racking back. The Museum of Natural History, the Zoo, the Denver Art Museum, currently DCPA, and what's the other?
Botanical Gardens,
Denver
Art.
The original 4 were the museum, the zoo, the art museum, and the gardens. And DCPA probably, time flies, 15, 20 years ago, DCPA then made a big push to join, to be in the tier one. And, so here we have ACC doing exactly the same thing that DCPA did in Denver. When that occurred, the other 4 just took a hit. They didn't change the percentages or anything. They just added DCPA to the big 5 now.
I don't know if it makes a difference. Do you remember if that was at reauthorization of SCFD or? if it
No, that
happened
was totally separate.
Okay.
Yeah, the reauthorization was just about 10 years ago. Don't remember that.
One of the other thoughts that I had too was Arapahoe Community College offered a lot of what they were going to do versus what they were doing. They are offering classes. There are classes available to community members, to be sure. They want to create a focus group. Somebody asked, will you do that anyways? They want to do, and so I think that's a philosophical question for us to ask is, do we want them to step up first and as an institution invest in arts and culture and within their own body, or are they looking for us to fund future initiatives that they're unable or unwilling to do themselves? Chicken and egg is my question.
Kate, I do agree with you that they're a really strong and culturally important presence in Littleton. I've taken writing classes there. I've looked at the interior design program there. I think where my hesitation is, we're only a few years in, and we're not meeting the revenue that we expect. So in my opinion, I love them. I think that they could be a tier 1. My hesitation is, I don't feel like right now is probably the right time because I'd like to see the program grow a little bit more. But I think they're fantastic. And I think there might be other ways we can partner with them and bring them with us and go along with them and build that bond between the two of us, because I think they're a great asset to the city of Littleton, and they are right there. I just don't know if this early on in the lodger's tax is the right time to add another entity to tier 1. That's just my concern. I love them though. I do agree. I think they're great.
So I think I'm hearing two options. The first is yes. And the second is not no, but not now. Anything else in there that I'm not representing in one of those two? Please. Yeah.
I have some financial concerns for them in the upcoming years in terms of federal funding. I'm really worried for them in terms of any sort of grant money that they would get to help fund student. I think that the cost of going there is going to go up a lot, and they try to keep that low. I'm worried for them, and I don't know if that should be motivation for us to add them to top tier, or I'm just not sure. I think they're a really important entity in Littleton, and if the money could keep them afloat, I would say yes, but I don't know how much they're actually going to need to keep afloat. I think they're probably deeply concerned behind closed doors.
So again, as a board, we don't officially vote on anything. We don't need motions or seconds. But I'm inclined in this instance to ask for a show of hands or a thumbs up or thumbs down. And I will offer 3 options. One is take no action and make no opinion whatsoever. So move on to the next agenda item and don't come to a resolution. 2 is not now, but not no. So encouraging them to continue on the path, supporting them in other ways as we can as a body, but not admitting them into, not recommending them for tier 1 status. And I will remind you, they can absolutely go to city council and make this case to city council directly. They can certainly appeal any recommendation. And then the third would be to recommend them for tier 1 status in 2026.
As an additional or instead of?
I think at this point, I would say
Additional.
in addition. I think we need to make that assumption if we're gonna do this.
I just want to confirm, regardless of what we do, like, if we said, yes, we think, we make a suggestion, that it would still have to go back to city council.
Correct. We are making a recommendation to city council. So any additional discussion? Or
About funding, do you have the same concern about LPS funding?
Oh, yeah. It's gonna be really bad. There's already gonna be $2 million, and that was before talks about the Department of Education shutting down. So, yeah, it's gonna be bad.
Yeah, so I mean, we have that to think about too.
arts will save the world.
There,
Any other discussion?
They're unknowns, though.
They are unknowns. Okay. So let me ask, let's do it this way. Put one finger in the air if you don't want to do anything, if you don't want to make a recommendation. 2 fingers in the air would be not now, but not no. 3 fingers in the air would be yes. Is that everybody clear? Okay, gotta find a better way to do that. Please call, does Colleen watch these meetings? Because I think she should.
Yeah.
Good, all right,
You can say hi to her.
please put, and I don't care which finger you use, you go ahead and do
Can
whatever
you
you want.
repeat those? I'm still stuck on
Number
put
one.
one finger in the air. Just-
Number 1, no action at all, no recommendation.
Thank you.
Number 2, not now, but not no. Number 3, yes for 2026. Okay, thank you very, very much. That is weighted heavily in favor of not now, but not no. Any other information we need at this point on that particular topic?
No, that's great. We can move forward with that recommendation to council that not no, but not now.
I would also like city council to start using the.
We're making that
You
recommendation.
can give the
Well,
finger to
we'll be
council.
They may use different fingers.
They
but
might,
no.
they might.
We get finger puppets.
Thank you very much. And I am, I will be very interested to find out how as a body we can continue to support the growth of Arapahoe Community College and all of the arts and culture programs around the city. I think that your points, Emily, are very well made. And will be interesting season as we move forward.
Speaking on behalf of one of the existing tier 1 institutions, I think there's also a lot of fodder and potential partnerships among the institutions, not only with this board and ACC.
Very good. So that brings us to our last item on the agenda under new business now is the museum subcommittee update.
We had a short meeting, but I think it was a productive meeting. Thank you to Roy, who was there, Joni, who was there as well. We had to review the strategic plan, which was basically just some updates that were currently in there, a few language changes. And then 3 pieces that we had to look at going through the deaccession process. One was a feather bed. I believe it was a feather bed that was just kind of in sad shape. And as you know, things deteriorate over time. So that was time to go. A piece of equipment has that gone to auction already? Or is it planning?
No, we had waited till the,
But that's kind of that's the plan for it, is to go to auction. So it had a tree growing through it. And so it just was not beneficial. And then a boat that had been by the ice house that had been there for quite a few years that had also deteriorated. So it was a pretty quick meeting, but I think it was productive. And from what I understand, in the new year, we will have a longer list to go through of things that need to be possibly go through the deaccession process. But thank you, Roy. It was a good first meeting, I thought, and it was good to get together. And now hopefully you can join us for the next one because we'll have a lot more to review.
The 2 pieces that we got rid of are not they're not late 1800s either. They're
Right.
both,
Age appropriate.
they were 1940s, 1950s pieces of equipment, which doesn't fit the time frame of the museum anyway.
does everybody understand the deaccession process? It's removing items from the permanent collection at the museum.
You can also get a new boat if you want one.
It is not seaworthy.
Yeah.
No, just it's not.
Or feather bed.
Oh, it was nasty.
That brings us to the end of our agenda. The one thing that's not on here that I did want to just run by is we don't have any business lined up for December. So unless anyone wants to make a strong pitch to meet in the month of December, we will officially cancel that meeting now. I'm looking for objections. Yeah, number 1.
Back with the fingers again, yeah.
All right, so enjoy your December evening off, and I hope you have wonderful holidays. Let's do a quick roundtable so that we have a subcommittee meeting of the Public Arts Committee to look at murals. Of course, anyone is welcome to stay and listen and participate, but you're also excused after this. So quick roundtable. Denise, you want to start?
Littleton Ballet Academy has the Nutcracker, December 20th, 21st, and 22nd. It's at the Joanna Ramsey Theater up in Westminster. So I hope some of you can make it. 5 shows.
Nothing there.
Roy?
I would encourage people that want to, I'm just looking to see if it's on here. The interactive, there it is. On this sheet, the QR code, if you haven't done it, log on, go to the interactive map and make comments about the Hudson Gardens if you haven't already. So I encourage people to do that.
I have nothing new, but the Hunchback is so good. It was so great. And just a really unique experience that I had never, like the set-free kind of presentation was phenomenal. And it was great to go there because then I saw a sign for a violin and piano concert, like couple weeks later, which was also phenomenal, beautiful. So I got out. It was new to me. The whole thing was, both of them were very new, so I loved it.
I do have an announcement. The Arts and Culture Award nomination form will be coming to your inboxes very soon. So please start thinking about that, and especially since we're not having next month's meeting, please just keep that at the forefront of your brains. I'll have more context in the email that I send out, but again, just as a reminder, that's the award that's presented at the April State of the Arts event.
Who is that application going out to this year?
That is gonna go out to this board, I think to the CAP group, to city council. And I mean, there's not really any limit to who we can send it out to. So you're welcome to forward it on to your friends and family. If you have any other suggestions of places to share it, please let me know. I wanna cast a wide net.
Do we want to post it on under the museum, under the arts and culture?
And on like the museum website and
Yeah.
socials, we can and we will, yes. And I'm gonna talk to the city too about sharing that via their socials.
Thank you.
Gonna go see the Addams Family at Euclid Middle School Friday night, so it's my thing.
I also saw the Hunchback and it was just awesome. And JD had a huge impact on that and really led the charge. But that never would have happened had the Arts and Culture Board not been brought together. And so those 3 entities would have never thought about working together had we not put together the board and the cultural art partners. So thank you, JD, for all of your hard work that you did with that. And then Voices West, I know has some holiday concerts coming up. And if you haven't heard them, they're just amazing. And we're really lucky to have them. So I will be at their concert. And our city manager is part of Voices West. So it's always cool to go support him.
I would just say that, to Roy's point of, filling out the South Suburban form, there are small, flyers back here and little business cards, so please take them with you to share with friends and family and neighbors, so that they can participate in this process as well.
Thank you, Jenny. And there's a variety of other flyers and brochures that were left over from the CAP group meeting yesterday. So take a look before you leave. There's goodies. Pancake breakfast with Santa.
I know. We all want to do that.
I do.
I have nothing. Happy holidays.
Dennis, anything?
Nothing further.
I want to thank Dennis for hosting.
It wasn't just me, it
yesterday's.
was, it was the library team, but we're happy to do it.
Yeah, it was good.
I have 3 things, and the first is, the CAP group is phenomenal. And Kate pointed it out, the Hunchback never would have happened without it. The very first time that group met, a number of people showed up, they introduced themselves, it was lovely. Yesterday, the Women's Caucus for Arts, Historic Preservation Board, Friends of the Library and Museum, Fine Arts Guild, Littleton Community Music Association, Littleton Symphony Orchestra, the Rocks Art Gallery, History, Littleton Inc., Sister Cities of Littleton, Aspen Grove, the LDDA, Columbine Genealogy, South Metro Housing Authority, Western Welcome Week, the Chamber, the Littleton Business Chamber, the museum, the library, Hudson Gardens, the ballet, the Crabapple Tree Route, Town Hall Arts Center, Arapahoe Community College, and Nourish Meals on Wheels were all there and represented. And they're not saying hello anymore. They're talking about collaborations. I cannot tell you how much cross-pollination happened in that room yesterday. Different projects, they're all talking to each other. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 of those groups that I just listed that don't have activities this holiday season. Crabapple Tree Route made it a point, they're dormant right now.
They're dormant.
Nothing to do there. Almost every single other one of those groups had some activity to participate in this holiday season. So please, if you possibly can, go do something with at least one of them. And then the last thing is, before you leave, I would like to invite you to a holiday party at my home. So please grab an invitation before you leave. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
For anybody who hasn't been to JD's house, there are a number of Christmas trees. So you just, how many are there, JD?
I think 13.
Oh my God.
And 18
It's truly an experience. They're themed.
Stand in the corner.
I'm just gonna come as a Christmas tree. and
That
see if
sounds
you-
like a Kardashian.
There's a decent chance.
They have like.
Do they have like
might hang
20?
something
But
else. I don't know.
that's fine. That's fine. I will say.